What's going on, y'all? We're back at it again. As usual, a few months late, but we're back at it again, trying to not get burned out and trying to be the best version of ourselves. It's something that many of us struggle with, especially nowadays that algorithms are so demanding. But we're back at it again with another episode of Double-Edged Sword today. On this episode, we're going to talk about something really important. And it's something that I felt it was so important that I felt the need to talk to you all face to face. So feel free to go watch the podcast rather than just listening to me. Go ahead and just have this playing in the background if you want for me. So it counts as a stream. It doesn't matter if you do or if you don't. As long as you watch it or listen to it the best way that you see fit. On that note, let's get to it. Today's episode is going to be about identity and the double-edged swords of identity. How identity can be used against us, but as well how it helps us. So, like every other episode we have worked on in the past, we are going to identify the meaning behind the words that we're going to talk about today. One of them being identity. Identity is a state of fact that is remaining the same for one or some ones. My identity, as many of you already know, is non-binary. Then we go to labels. Labels can be considered a paper, fabric, plastic placed on an object, right, to give information. That is something we do with gender or other labels that have been created to objectify us as humans. My label would be my pronouns. He, they, them, right? And the thing is that identity and labels is a spectrum. Everybody's different. Not everyone's is the same. And the bottom line is that many people get lost in their own thought process, which takes us where we are today here in the world. And to really understand it more, we really have to identify the pros and cons of these things, such as identity. Let's talk about it. Identity helps us feel empowered of who we are becoming as human beings, right? It helps us provide a sense of guidance on where we should be in life. Because if we identify with, let's say, I identify as I want to be a patriot of this country, right? Let's just say that. Well, if I identify I want to be a patriot, maybe I will choose to go into Naval Academy, or maybe I will choose to go into politics. Identity gives us a sense of understanding where we should go in order to find our sense of belonging as human beings. Because unfortunately, as human beings, we are social. And being social weak as humans, we need that sense of belonging. Many people may say, myself included, that they do not need it. But that does not neglect the fact that when they feel a sense of belonging, there's some sort of joy feeling within them, deep inside, right? But the thing with identity, not only can it help us figure out who we are, but it can help corporations. Not only can it help corporations, but it can help politics. It can help politicians. It can help in politics, as I said. And the thing is, these things, whether we like it or not, can be manipulated and or constructed in a sense that it will fit or create a sense of belonging, as stated, to a certain narrative. One example is how people like to say that they identify as being the first people that were actually here in the Americas. Prime example goes with our people down in Mexico. As a Mexican growing up, one of the things that I truly heard all the time was, oh, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Texas, it all used to be part of Mexico and it belonged to Mexico. But did it, colonizer? You identify as the Mexican that owned these lands supposedly because of the colonization that happened to the Paiute, Shoshone, Chumash, and all of the surrounding tribes within, right? But the Mexicans back in Mexico and even here still to this day in the United States believe that that was part of Mexico, completely ignoring the colonization that happened not by Mexico, but the colonizers that colonized Mexico, which, you know, later they sold off, and we can skip the history lesson, right? And we have to think about something deeply, and we have to realize it. Isn't this just guidance that was handed down to us because of generational traumas? Just think about it for a second. Most of the times people believe they truly identify with a certain thing or a certain topic or a certain situation. But is it? One of the main reasons why I can be compassionate when it comes to understanding where racism comes from is because of that. Because I realized that it took one person to create a negative impact in that one person, and that one person has passed it down for generations after generations after generations. Is it an excuse to the racism and the hate? Of course not. But we have to be compassionate to one another as humans, especially when we have TV, social media, books even nowadays, trying to force an identity on us based on what they can sell to us or based on what they think they can sell to us because they feel like they're selling us that sense of belonging. Catching the drift? And identity is not like the only thing that is part of this double-edged sword. It's not. Another part of it is the labels. As we stated, the sense of belonging is huge, but there's nothing bigger than a sense of community. When people share their labels or when people put their labels online, slowly but surely, they start falling into a community, right? This community, whether it be something that is fully about them as labels or not, at the end of the day, it's leeching off from our sense of belonging, which makes it profitable, right? Profitable for big tech corporations. Because if you're out here putting your labels on how you identify yourself as, in what categories, what boxes you want to be part of, it will be more easier for these tech corporations not only to gather data on you for their algorithmic purposes, but for the obvious reasons of advertisement. I mean, yes, they listen to our conversations, they watch our cameras and all of that bullshit, right? But we have to think about this. What is one thing that Facebook has always managed to do? Facebook has always managed to find a way, right? Find a way to make sure that you're always showing your box, showing your label, showing how you identify or what you agree with. The biggest prime example I remember of Facebook is back, like in 2015, I believe, when the attack in France happened. Y'all remember that? Remember how quick Facebook was to release a framing filter for profile pictures that says, "We stand with France," right? You see what I'm getting at with this, right? And doing all of these things create the root foundation, right? The root foundation to division. Because let's say you identify as part of the LGBT community, you identify as brown, you identify as indigenous, etc., right? Now that all of that, right? All of that is put in a fucking box for them to sell, then it becomes identity politics. One of the main things that we have seen for the past 10 plus years since Obama had made it popular is how social media uses politics, and politics uses social media. They cannot work without each other. They need each other in order to be profitable. Think and hear that again. They need each other to be profitable. Facebook needs to identify you in order to be profitable for their business, to sell their data to these politicians or these lobbying firms or corporations that at the end of the day are going to make you feel like you belong to them or that you're part of their community, right? And yeah, it may be providing a community, uniting under one identity, right? Or provide a sense of healing to those that seek it through the sense of belonging, right? Division through ideology in between corporate lobbying provides a room for manipulation. One of the biggest things that is out there is, before social media, was TV, right? Before TV, there was books and newspapers. And one of the things that was manipulative based on identity was yellow journalism. Yellow journalism is something that we are now seeing come up again within social media. Whether it be Ben Shapiro or Joe Rogan or any of other person that might identify as a journalist but with a sense of community, right? It is just creating this fake sense of belonging, this fake sense of community, all while they're profiting off you, all while they're making you more hateful towards each other. It doesn't matter what it is that you believe in. As you're listening to me or watching me, just know that this is coming from a place of nonpartisan biasness. whether you be red, blue, or green, you have to understand one thing. And I want you to understand this as clear as possible. Under a corporate-owned government, we will always be divided, because they have figured out that in order to mine our attention, all they have to do is have us identify ourselves and put ourselves in labels and boxes in order for them to keep lobbying and keep us distracted and keep the attention away from things that truly matter. What do I mean by that, right? The main thing that I mean by that is right now, there's a lot of identity politics going on. Red versus blue, liberals versus conservatives, however you may want to see it. The Supreme Court supposedly is who is to blame for affirmative action, or Roe versus Wade. But previous administrations, previous senators in Congress that have been there for a long ass time, one of them being our current president, Joe Biden, had the opportunity, right? They've had the opportunity to codify, whether it be affirmative action, Roe versus Wade, or indigenous people having water rights. They had the opportunity to codify it into a formal law. But treaties, just like direct actions, are just a form of broken promises. Not only are they just a form of broken promises, but they are just a band-aid. The biggest band-aid that I can think of right now that will sooner than later be struck down by the Supreme Court, not because the Supreme Court disagrees with it only, but because we've had fake politicians say that they're going to do something about it. We've had our current president say that he would do something about it within 100 days of being in office. And that is DACA, right? But because we are so divided, we are so red versus blue, conservative versus liberals, religious versus non-religious, etc., 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 our attention is not there. Our critical thinking is not there because they have mined it. If you have ever listened to John Trudell, he talks about this in such a beautiful manner that once you listen to it, you will understand how they mine our attention. And at the end of the day, if they mine our attention, they mine our energy. Our energy to truly do something for the whole country, world, and so on and so forth. We have become a goldmine, not only to tech corporations, but we have become a goldmine to all of these big corporations, or to all of the movements created by NGOs. Do you really all think that all of a sudden corporations and these politicians care about Juneteenth, Pride, or any of the above? No. Don't get it twisted. The only reason they're starting to care is because money has become involved. We have become so lost in our personal identities and our personal divisions because of the identities that we choose that we don't realize how we are being mined from our attention that at the end makes us not notice how they profit from our identity and labels. So much that they have created even more division. What is one thing that we have seen in the past couple of months that has to do with identity politics? Yep. If you're thinking it, you're right. I am talking about how greenwashing, pride washing, immigrant washing, etc., has even right-wing washing has started. The right corporations noticed that people didn't agree with Bud Light. So what did someone do? They created Patriot beer, right? People started to seeing woke merchandise within Amazon, so much that Mammoth started off, which is a right-wing Amazon in main terms. So all of these things are happening. We are being segregated, not separated. We are being segregated at a choice, and at a profitable choice. Remember, not only are these corporations profiting from it, but so is Uncle Sam. Because these corporations didn't get into the bandwagon of whatever identity they're selling because they agree with it. No, they are only getting into it because there is an NGO behind it that is giving them write-offs, which is an article that we touch base on kviginfo.com, which is a whole deeper topic if you want to go look into it. The point is, if you're putting your identity and if you're putting your labels out there, you better be ready to critically think when things by the algorithm are sent your way, or when you think that someone's starting to start something with you. As we have talked about in previous episodes, there is this company known as Intrepid that creates persona software management, which is basically a way to create sock puppets. Sock puppets are basically bots in a sense, but these bots are controlled by individuals, whether it be by the military for pro-American propaganda, or whether it be by people that afford these things and actually buy them. Because you gotta think, if corporations have the money to create bots for their artists so they can have a lot of streams, don't you all think that the same corporations that are selling all of this woke or right-wing merchandise can do the same? If the United States has figured out how to use sock puppets and persona software management to profit from pro-American propaganda through social media means, don't you all think that corporations can do the same thing, considering that they own the technology? If you're listening to the podcast, you probably can't see right now that I am just deadly looking at the camera, because it is so mind-boggling how in 2023 we are so easily manipulated. Many people within the right-wing community love to talk about MK Ultra. But for some odd fucking reason, when y'all talk about MK Ultra, y'all seem to forget that one of the biggest success stories of MK Ultra was media. Right? Like, y'all have to understand that it's not about patriotism. It's not about being on the right side of history like liberals like to think. The bottom line is that we don't have one ruler only. We have hundreds of rulers that profit from mining our attention away from the things that they're doing behind the curtains because it is profitable to them and it is profitable to Uncle Sam. Which at the end, what does Uncle Sam do? Gives billions to Israel to invade Palestine, gives billions to Ukraine to fight the invasion. All while Lockheed Martin is making money. They're playing the both sides of the sword. And yet, some of you have lost the attention span that is needed to critically think, to notice and realize that they love to play both sides. One of the things that stuck out the most to me that proves that they're playing both sides, it's affirmative action. What is one thing that they said about affirmative action? That they will still hold it as a base, right? For when it comes to military academies. Y'all catching the drift? They want you to have that affirmative action feeling when it comes to your patriotism, but not when it comes to your education. Why? Because it does not benefit them to take you to an educational background rather than a military patriotic background. And one is easy to manipulate, the other is not. Because as stated before, the sense of belonging. That sense of belonging is one of the things that they are milking. And many of you don't realize this. They are milking it, whether it be by your labels, whether it be by how you identify, whether it be because of how you think about this country or what it has done or who it has affected or who it hasn't affected. The bottom line is they know. And the saddest part is you all know this, yet y'all choose to be cognitive dishonest. The left knows about the lobbying firms. The right knows about how our votes don't matter. The right think our votes don't matter because some conspiracy bullshit, and the left thinks that our vote don't matter because they feel that we're being tokenized and that gerrymandering happens. But all of these distractions, even though gerrymandering is an issue and even though some conspiracy theories might be true to an extent, that's what they are, distractions. Because once they distract you and keep you focused where they need you to be focused, they can do what they need to do in the background, all while we don't pay attention to it. Everything that happens in this country happens with the planning of corporations, military, and government. None of our current technology would exist without military. None of our current technology would exist because of the mission. Right? All of the technology we use today profits from division, profits from identifying who you are as a human and what your labels are. Above all, profits from your data, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Twitter. At the end of the day, they are collecting your data to keep your attention away from their own contradictions and hypocrisy. And no matter your community and or identity, we cannot be naive to the oppressive power brought upon by all forms of corporate ideological lobbying that divides us and keeps us spending. Above all, keeps us as the product. Because remember, that's what you are to them, a product. So much that they're willing to divide you and keep you away from the truth. And you all know the truth. Yet, y'all let the division get to you. Y'all let the lobbying get to you. Y'all let the corporations, greenwashing, pride washing, BLM washing, etc., right-wing washing, etc., right? You all let it happen. Why? Because we are primitive. We have that primitive need and sense of belonging. Yes, I am calling us humans primitive because we keep falling for shit that we already know the truth to. And if you rather me call it insanity, because it could be called insanity as well, so be it. But just know you're not smart like you claim, right wing. And you're not always right like you claim, liberals. Because at the end of the day, y'all playing the same game. Y'all playing the same game and the same tunes that keeps us divided. And the sad part is that it's not going anywhere. This is going to be an ongoing thing that will keep going for the next fucking decades. And it will never stop until you all pay attention and start asking for true, comprehensive, nonpartisan ratification of not only the Constitution, but Bill of Rights. And if you're watching, you notice my pause. And if you're listening, you probably sensed my pause. And my pause was a sense of despair. Because that's what they want us to feel. And that is how most of us feel. So much that many of us today, myself included, have been able to put up with the ideology of an eye for an eye. Yes, an eye for an eye makes the world go blind. But you are, all of you, already blind by corporate lobbying and politicians getting richer by that lobbying. Don't y'all get it? We are just a product to them. And them is politicians and corporations. No matter what they tell you, no matter if they tell you that they care for us or not, we are a product. As people that are not in power or are Fortune 500 CEOs or any of that bullshit, we are just a product. And they are trying to figure out what to create, how to create, and when to release it. Prime example, Threads. Facebook, also known as Meta, just released Threads. Why did they release it? Because they feel that people will gravitate to it. Why will people gravitate to it? You know, you guessed it. People will gravitate to it because of the sense of belonging. Many people say that they don't feel like they belong on Twitter anymore. How many journalists, how many celebrities have actually announced that they're leaving Twitter because they disagree with Elon or how he does things for Twitter? Are you listening? Are you watching me? Are you seeing my facial expressions? Because these facial expressions are not out of laughter, but rather out of pain. Because I know most of you fuckers don't give a fuck. Most of you fuckers care about your own narratives, your own agendas. Yet, complain about politicians and corporations having their own agendas. All while y'all choose to piggyback on these agendas in order to pass your narrative as the right narrative. Right? Oh man, we are just walking contradiction and hypocrisy as humanity. And once y'all realize how primitive we truly are, maybe, just maybe, you all will be ready to step aside and we'll look at the bigger picture. And that is that you are the product. You're not a voter. You're just a product to them. That's all you all been. From the beginning of time to the end of time. Until we actually step back and realize what Fred Hampton told us. That is the truth. In that we need to truly unify, no matter redneck or liberal or any of that bullshit, right? Because at the end of the day, we are just a product that they are taking all our money slowly but surely, all while everything is getting more expensive and people are suffering. People are losing their homes, losing their jobs to AI. All while they're profiting from your information on AI. Do you all see where I'm getting at now? Your identity and your labels not only are your strengths, but they are your weakness as well. They are your weakness the moment you let them become you. Because once you let it become you, they can target you. Plain and simple. But the USA and Europe supposedly are depressive, right? I mean, to finish off the episode, one of the biggest things that is happening at the moment as we speak in China is that the president is having a stand against feminism. And this stand against feminism is allowing certain band members out in China to realize how much of a double-edged sword it was to share their labels and identity. Because now that they share their labels and identity, the Chinese government can go after them. The same way a racist being openly racist gets screwed over, or a person that decides to openly be who they want to be in the workplace. Prime example is the Crown Act. The Crown Act passed, but at the same time, it's biting us in the ass because it's going to allow for more people to discriminate. Right now, many of y'all are just probably thinking, what is this? Who am I listening to? What is this person talking about? It probably does not make sense to you all right now. And that's okay. But just remember that Joe Rogan is not Joe Rogan without identity politics. Elon Musk is not Elon Musk without identity politics. These big media corporations are not who they are without identity politics, such as MSNBC, CNN, Fox. Do you all really think they care about the lawsuits that they may get or actually have to pay out for? No. They care that you're eating their bullshit, that you're coming back for seconds, and that you're coming back for thirds. And that once you shit their bullshit, you go back to it. That's why I say you can call it being primitive or plain and simple insane. On that note, once again, y'all, I truly apologize for being late on the new episode, but I don't want to burn out and I don't want to be the product. I'm going to give you guys raw information in my style at my time, not at the time that I feel best will suit the algorithm. Because at the end of the day, if I were to do that, I become the product. And I am not a product. I am just a spirit living a human experience that unfortunately, my labels and identity is something that many people do not agree with. But just because they do not agree with does not give me the right to hate on them. Does it? Eye for an eye makes the world go blind, but you all already blind. Never forget that, y'all. And I hope I can come up with new episodes sooner than months that it took me to come up with this one. I just don't want to burn out. And it seems like with social media and everybody trying to become an influencer or trying to become relevant as more jobs keep getting taken away by AI and automation, the content creation industry is sadly the future, which at the end, it's a product that they will be able to sell. Never forget that. And remember, if you feel like you are becoming too overconsumed by your own identity labels or even your political beliefs, step back, take a deep breath, and realize that that person may be racist because a certain thing that happened to whether it be them or their family in the past, and that they haven't been able to get through that generational trauma. And to the people that identify as racist or right-wing, realize that the hate that has been passed down to you by previous generations, it's affecting the true community we could be building as humans, right? If you want to hate on each other, by all means, let yourselves be consumed by their plan, because that's what it is. A divided community is easier to conquer. A conquered community is easier to sell to. Never forget that, y'all. On that note, once again, go ahead and check out the article that I was talking about earlier. Make sure that you read it, share it, and if you can, drop a comment and tell us what you learned about it. kviginfo.com. We hope to hear from y'all soon. And if you all have any questions and y'all listening through Spotify or any other means, send me a direct message or tweet me or ask me on actual Spotify itself at Kurthland, Kurthland, on Twitter or Threads. Now that they're trying to quote unquote kill Twitter, right? On that note, y'all, I hope to see you all soon here once again, and I hope you'll listen closely to what I had to say and reevaluate what your stance is, and notice that you may have overconsumed their narrative and bullshit. On that note, have a wonderful day, and remember, we're just spirits living a human experience.